Alright guys, today we're going to look at custom entities or models for your custom stories or full conversion mods, basically for Amnesia. And there are a lot of things that I need to say about custom entities because they're kind of, it's not actually that hard once you get the hang of it, but there's a lot of risk to it, and you need to be aware of a lot of things. So basically, this is, if you have never made a model before, I'm not going to actually show how you make the model because you're not doing that in the model editor. I think a more fitting name for this editor would probably be entity editor, because it makes the entities that you use in the game, but it doesn't make the model. But you use another program, a 3D modeler, to actually make the model. I use Maya 2011, which I really recommend if you want to make models, but probably not everyone can do that. If you are able to get a model that works for Amnesia, then you can use that. If not, then I might make videos for using Maya later, but I'm not too familiar with it myself, so it would be a little strange making a video if you don't know mostly everything about it or whatever. But so I have already made a model right here, so if you are actually able to get a hold of a model, then you can use that to import into Amnesia. But there are a lot of things that you need to be aware of with these models. So I have opened this right here. Basically I just made a very basic cube and added some texture on it. This is a texture which you might recognize, and this is the model, and this is just how it looks. And if you're actually able to get this get a model that works in Amnesia, then you can use that. But not every model works in Amnesia. First of all, it needs to be in the DAE format, and that's the Open Collada format, pretty much. And even though it is a DAE file, it might still not work. And that is because Amnesia is very picky on how the models are, and if your model crashes anytime during this tutorial, then that means the model is not compatible with Amnesia. So you need to be aware of that. Basically, once I make videos on Maya, I'm going to show you how to export your models, but briefly, you need to make sure that it doesn't render the camera or lights, and that it always triangulates the models, because Amnesia uses triangles and not squares for everything. Let's jump a little further ahead then. I'm just going to note that if you're using a Windows computer, you can still use this tutorial because it's done the exact same way. But basically, once you have a model that works, you can test if it works, but if it doesn't work, then I don't think I can help you with that. But if you're able to get a model that works, maybe you can download some of the internet. Just make sure that they are Amnesia compatible and DAE format. Once you actually get a model, you should have them in a folder like this. I have a folder right here, and it should be the model file and the texture file right next to each other. And if they actually work like this one does, then you can import it to Amnesia pretty simply. Let me also say that making custom models or entities in Amnesia is kind of risky to the game. Not that it will break anything necessarily, but if you do something wrong with them, it could end up messing up your game a little bit. So nothing too serious, I suppose, but just don't think that this is going to be really straightforward, because it's even I have problems with these things sometimes. Right. Okay, so I'm gonna open up my Amnesia root folder. I just have a shortcut right here, but you should be able to know where to find your Amnesia folder. If not, you can open up Steam if you have it on Steam, and go on Properties, Browse Local Files, and you should get the folder. Whatever operating system you're on, you should be able to open this Amnesia folder, and this is basically everything in it. And I also have the editors right here. We're going to use the model viewer and model editor, these two, and the level editor. So right, basically, first of all, first step, once you have your model, you need to import it or import it, well, let's just start by opening the entities folder. Make sure it's the entities folder of the main Amnesia game, because this is required to use in the level editor later. So open up the entities folder and just make a new folder, I recommend, and you can call this one custom, or just call it whatever you like, but I like to call it custom. And inside of that folder you need to place the model that you just made. So now I have placed it right in here. So I have custom block and the model. By the way, I'm also going to provide a download link for this model so that you can use it yourself if you'd like. Maybe mess around with it and test it. And if you also edit this texture, you will be able to edit the actual texture on the model, so you are free to do so if you'd like. Right, so after you have placed your model somewhere in the entities folder, I like to keep it in custom, as I said, you can open up the model viewer. Make sure it's the model viewer. It should look like this. And basically it's pretty simple what you need to do. You just load model, the first button up top here, and then you find it. Mine is in entities, custom block, custom block.dae. And you open up the DAE file, and once you click load, this is probably the most important part, because this will determine whether or not you're able to do this. If the model works and loads, then you have successfully made a compatible model. If the model editor, this whole application, crashes as soon as you click load, that means the model is not compatible with Amnesia, and you will probably not be able to make it compatible without re-exporting it. And if you were not the one who made it, it could be difficult to re-export it, if you get what I'm saying. But if you manage to get this far, then I can probably help you onwards. But if you crash, then I don't know exactly how to help you, because there are many factors as to why it could crash, but most likely it was either not triangularized, or it included cameras or lights, which it should not. But there are, of course, many other factors that I am not aware of, so hopefully you have a model that is compatible. Alright, so now we have made it this far, and basically you don't really need to do anything in the model viewer. Basically, as soon as you open a model in the model viewer, if you go back to your model file or folder, custom block, there are two new files here. One is the mat file, which is the material for the PNG file or texture file. This is the material. You can edit this if you'd like, but you don't need to. And this is the MSH file, which is the mesh. And if you don't know what a mesh is, basically mesh is just another word for model. So you don't need to worry about that. Just whenever you see the word mesh, just think of model. This is what you actually see. Alright, so once you have actually made a model that actually appears in the model viewer, you can just escape and close that program completely, because we don't need to do anything more. And after that, you need to open the model editor. And here we have the model editor. I'm going to put it on the side. And basically you go on to make a new one. Of course you could click new if you already have one open, but it should start as new. Don't click open, because that opens an already made model. You click import mesh, pretty much as I said, import model. So this will import a file, the DAE file, that you can add. And just be sure that if it crashes in the model viewer, then it would most likely crash here as well. So just be very careful with this. And if you actually don't crash, then you should be good to go. So click load on this, and here we have our model. I'm going to maximize this viewport, and here we have our workbench model. And basically this is where you define everything that this entity of the model will do. So basically everything, what this model is, what material, what everything that you interact with this thing in game. Basically if you just save it like this right now, without doing anything more, you can place it in the level, but you can also just walk through it and not interact with it in any way. So let's start by actually placing it on here. I'm gonna turn on grid. It's off by default because you usually want to be very precise in the editor of the models. If you notice, look very closely, you can see these squares are split in triangles. As I said, the model needs to be triangulated to be able to work. So yeah, just be sure that it is. If not, it will crash definitely. Right, so here we have our model in the editor again. Or yeah, so basically whatever you want to do with this model you can define here. There are a lot of tools on the side here. You don't need to use most of them really. This one is just for lights, if you want to attach a light to it. So let's say you made a torch, you can attach a light to it so that it will light up the area around it. The next one is a billboard. If you made a torch, you can add a halo to it. And the third one is particle system. If you wanted to like maybe drop some dust as you walk or whatever, you can add that, but none of these are actually necessary. Sounds either. None of these are necessary for the model. These are just extras if you want to add them. And the last one is joints, which if you have an animated model you can add joints, but I'm not too familiar with that yet. So basically you can make joints if you want to make swing doors and things you interact with that are like it's one model but you interact with two parts of it, if you get what I'm saying. Like let's say a closet, you can interact with the doors but not the actual closet. They're the same entity though. That's because there are 3 different models or 3 meshes inside the model, and basically they are connected with joints. But I'm not going to go into joint tutorial now. We're just going to be basic model editor tutorial. And basically if you want the character to collide with this or to be able to grab it or not walk through it, you go on shapes, and this will add a collision box to it. Collision box is pretty self-explanatory. It's a box or boundaries that you will collide with. So you can select whatever shape you want. This is only 4 basic shapes: box, cylinder, capsule, or sphere. So let's just take a look at these. The box is, as it says, it's a box. I'm going to use this one for the collision on this one. The next one is a cylinder, which is like that. You can also select them afterwards and resize them if you like. So this is how you make more advanced collision boxes. And then you can go on sphere and capsule. Start out the same. The sphere is as you think, it's just a sphere, but the capsule is, it's like a sphere, except you can resize it vertically like this. So that's how they end up looking like. If you want to have a very advanced collision box on your model, well, actually let's come back to that. Let's just start by adding this box on it. So just be sure that this collision box, this is what you actually interact with. This is you don't crash with the actual model, you collide with the collision box. So be sure to place it as closely as you can to the model that you want to interact with. In my case, mine fits perfectly. If you notice, the textures are flickering. That's because 2 things are in the exact same location. So if you ever notice this in the model editor, it's good because that means it's a very precise collision box. But if you notice it in the level editor, that's bad because then that means there are 2 entities within each other, and you don't want that to appear in the game. But these boxes are of course invisible. It's the model that you see. So now that we have this one on, if you want to, this is not the collision yet. What you need to actually make it a collision, you go on the shape tab and you create the body. As soon as you click this, it'll turn green instead of purple, and now you can collide with it. But if you were to make a model that has, like, let's say it has this box, but then it has like a mini box on top, you don't want to click that one and create body, and then you click the other box and create body on that as well in the same entity, because that will make 2 separate collision boxes. And in static objects, these are okay, but if you want to make like a very advanced, as I said, collision box, like let's say it's very curvy or whatever, then you want to select by holding shift on one box, and you can select multiple, and then you can create body, and that will make everything into one body. So whenever you click one, you will click everything. So basically that will create one body instead of 3 separate. And that's a very useful hint whenever you make more advanced collision boxes. And if you were to click delete on any of these, it'll revert them back to mesh or primitive, non-collision yet. Anyways, let's go back to this. After you created body, you can click the body of it and not the model. Just be sure to click the actual body. Right now I click the cube. There we go, there's the body. You can go on the body tab. If you want to attach lights, particles, or anything, go on the attachment tab and select whatever you want to. You can place down in the model whatever thing you want, like a light, and then you can click down light, click attach, and select the light, and click attach again, I think, and then they will be attached to the collision box. But I'm not going to do that to this model. Let's just go into the body tab. This is where a few things are defined. Basically, the first one is the material. It's easy enough. Just select whatever material you want. Dust, dirt, metal, wood. I'm going to select wood heavy because it's going to be a heavy box. Then there's the mass. So basically, if the mass is at 0, it doesn't have gravity. If the mass is at 1, it'll be very light. And I don't recommend putting anything 1 or below, because those entities seem to glitch a lot in the actual game. So I'm going to put this one up to 20, so it's going to be quite heavy. As I said, it's the heavy wood material. These damping and angular speed are basically, you don't need to do anything with those if you don't want to, but let me, as an example, let's say the pig. When you pick up the pig, you can move it around with your camera as you hold it, and it'll be like slowly going around, and it'll be kind of heavy to carry, you know? It'll be just jiggling all around. These are defined right here, I believe. So, but since I'm just going to make a very simple one, I'm not going to mess with that. And then there are these checkboxes right down here. These can define some of the more basic things within this model. Blocks sound. If you wanted to be able to block sound, you can do that. Continuous collision, not exactly sure what this is. I haven't messed with it. I don't really mind though. Mostly I just keep these the default. You don't really need to do anything. After you created the body, you can just export it and you should be good. You can just attach player. You can select volatile if you want it to be able to break. And you can uncheck gravity or check gravity if you like. And then you can also collide character, collide non-character. So basically if it collides with you and it collides with other models. So I'm just going to keep all of these default. And we're almost done to export this, but before we do, you want to go on the settings tab up here, user defined variables. This is where pretty much everything else that you haven't defined already is. So click on this, it'll open this big box that is basically empty, but you can select what kind of object this is going to be. So you can, like, if it wants to be an NPC, you can put that. If you want it to be an item that you're able to pick up in the inventory, you can define that here. If you want it to be an enemy, you can select that here. But those are all pretty advanced, so if you don't know how to use them, it could be tricky, but feel free to experiment. I'm going to select object because that's a very basic one. After you select object, you can select a subtype. If you want it to be able to, it's static, you'll not be able to interact with it. Slide and push, I think they're like the bed, you can slide and push, and these are different kind of interactable entities. And then there's the grab one, where you can just click it and take it with you wherever you want. After you select grab, there are a lot of things that you can customize here, most of which I'm not even going to do anything with. Basically you can just keep it all default and you should now be able to grab the entity in the game. Of course you can change these because it's highly customizable in here, but you don't need to do anything. So I'm just going to X off that after I've selected object grab, and I'm going to go file, save as, and it should be saved as an ENT file, which is the entity. As soon as you save that file, it'll pop up right here. Here's the entity file. It's basically a text file with ent extension. And once you're done with that, you can close off the model editor. Now you can open up the level editor because we've successfully made our model. And I'm going to open a map that I made, level 9, and this is just an empty cellar map, as you can see. Now if you go to entities and this is why it needs to be in the entities folder right here, entities, Amnesia entities, or else it will not appear here. So this is only entities. You click on this Dropbox and you should see the name of the folder that you created. I called mine custom, and you should see it in the drop menu right here. Click on that and you should list all the models that are inside that folder. If you made any new models that you added within here, you can click refresh, but just be aware that models can derp out a bit sometimes if you add and edit a lot of them while having the editor open or while having some saved in your map. So also I guess I should note that if you mess a lot with these models and well, your editors, they can act strange if you remove them while using them or stuff like that, so just be careful with it. I can't exactly tell you what to do, but just be careful not to do anything that you think will mess it up, because it could. Alright, custom block. Here's a thumbnail for it, and you can just select wherever you want it to be placed. So right there we have our workbench in that corner. I'm gonna put another one there, I'm gonna put another one there, put one there. I'm not gonna put it inside now. I can duplicate it and place one on top if I like that maybe. And let's also place one more just randomly over there. So here we have our spawn point, by the way. Okay, so there are the entities, and as soon as you made them and defined them in the model editor, you can just place them in your level and save the map and run. Whenever you add a new entity, just make sure that you restart your Amnesia game, because the models are only loaded once you launch the game. So basically, if you add a new model and it doesn't appear in the game, just make sure that you actually restarted it, because that is something I forget a lot. And there are a lot of things that can go wrong with these models, so you could try asking me and I will see if I can help, but there are just so many factors that I might not be able to help, but I'll try my best if you have any errors. Also, yeah, so as I said earlier, you can download this model and test around with it if you'd like. And yeah, you can also retexture it. But now let's open up the game and just see if it appears in the game. I have a full conversion mod on right now, so that's why my menu is different. And here we are in the level, a very small level. You can now grab it because I selected it to be an object grab, and you can rotate it if you like, zoom and throw, and it makes noise and everything depending on what material it is. So all of this is defined in the editor, and it's actually not as hard as you might think. The biggest problem is definitely just getting a compatible model, because although I've heard that you can use Blender for this, which is free, I have never gotten Blender to work, and therefore I kind of gave up on it, because I just couldn't find any help on how to use Blender. So I gave up on Blender and used Maya instead, and Maya is perfect for me. Maya is really good. So I'm gonna make videos on Maya later on. I'm not sure in how long though, because I need to be able to comfortably use it and know what I'm doing, because I don't want to give false information. So anyways, hopefully your entities work if you have a model or you actually know how to make a compatible model. Now you can make them into entities in Amnesia, and should be able to work. And yeah, you can download my model if you want to mess around with it, and that's pretty much it. So now that is actually everything I had to say in this video. So I will thank you for watching, and if you found it helpful in any way, then I would really appreciate if you would like the video. It motivates me to make more of them. And yeah, that should be everything, so I'll see you around.